Inside of your booklet, go ahead and go to pages 16 and 17, and this is going to be learning to do eyes and eyebrows. The very first thing we're going to do is we want to establish an eye line and put our points in here that we're going to eventually draw our eyes on top of that. Now this information here already exists from what we just did. So again, this is going to be the eye line going from A to A, and then also getting CBC, the center CBC. So what you're going to want is a blank piece of paper, and use some thin copy paper because you're going to want to be able to trace this off. So when I put it on top of here, you should be able to see through. If you cannot see through, go ahead and make your eye line a little bit darker and make your dots a little bit bigger, as well as getting the center of the face darker in this area. So go ahead and do that now, and then you should be able to see through. If your table is like a dark wood table, sometimes it also helps to put a blank piece of paper underneath, put this on top, and now you have a white background, and then you can easily see through your paper. Now, if it helps, you could label these B, C, B, but eventually we're going to start drawing the eyes in here. So hopefully you can remember which dots are which ones. So looking at the lesson here, now we know the location of our eye. So from C to C is one eye, and over here, same thing. The next thing we want to know is how tall is your eye, since we already know how wide it is. Basically, how tall your eye is half as wide. So if you were to get from B to C measurement, that would be how tall your eye is total. If we want to do half of an eye tall, what would really be nice is to have 1/4 of an eye going up and 1/4 of an eye coming down, and then we have half of an eye total. So in order to find this 1/4 up and 1/4 down, if you go from B to C and you divide that in half, this will now be 1/4 of an eye. So I can come in and I can measure 1/4 of an eye, and I can go down 1/4, and I can go up 1/4. And now these two new dots should total half of an eye. So here I'm measuring from B to C, and I'm double checking that yes, that's half of an eye. Now let's repeat that over here. So make sure you're finding the center, which is that point B, and you're going above and below. So again, that would be here. We're going above and below, and the total is half of an eye from B to C. Now that we have the eye height, the first thing we're going to draw in here is the crease from your eye. So here you can see this is her upper eyelid, and there's eyelashes growing out of her eyelid, and above that is this crease. That's going to be what we're going to draw first. So going from C, closest to the center of her face, and connecting up to that new eye height, and then as you pass it, start to just fade away. So if you'll notice, the crease will go up and then it just fades away. Do the opposite now for the mirror side. So this is C, closest to center front. Go up, hit that dot, and then just let it fade away. Now to get a little more line quality, what we should do is it should be dark here, and as you move along, let off so it's light out there. So go ahead and do this now. Again, so it's darker here and lighter as you come out to the edges. The next thing we want to do is we want to draw the actual upper eyelid. So in order to do that, we're going to drop down here and here. So looking over here at what you've just drawn, so this is that C point, the inside of her eye. You're going to drop down just a little bit and put a new dot there. And then there used to be a dot here for the full height. We drew right on top of that. Go ahead and drop down from that as well. And then the C that's over here on the eye line, leave that one as it is. So that's these steps right here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to connect this new dot to this new dot to the original C that's on the eye line. So here's what that looks like. Here's the new dot connecting to this other new dot and then back to the eye line. And then go ahead and do the opposite on the mirror side. So put a dot below C here and below the height there, and then you're going to connect up to there. Now ideally the line quality for this will be heavy on the inside, and as you move to the outside it gets lighter. So dark here and then lighter as you travel to the outside. Now when you're looking at someone, if you put a ruler through their eye line and you're connecting the outer corners of her eyes, you'll notice that the front inside corners are lower, so they move down a little bit. And that's exactly what we just did here. The outside corners of your eye are on the eye line, but the inside corners are just below the eye line. The next thing we want to get is her lower eyelid. So remember we found the upper crease was 1/4 of an eye high, and then this other 1/4 of an eye going low. This is going to be the bottom eyelid. So at first, just draw a very small shape, like so, and you're starting to aim back towards this, and you're starting to aim towards that. Now, on an actual person, the bottom eyelid travels the full distance to the outside corner and the full distance here into the tear duct. But what I've noticed from students and myself is when you start to connect an eye completely all the way around, they almost start to look like little footballs or something, and it gets a little bit distracting. So what I like to teach my students is if you start to aim for the outside corner but you never make it there, and you start to aim for the inside corner but you never quite make it there, then the eyes will look a lot more natural and simple. So you actually never quite close the eye itself. You leave a little bit open on the inside and outside edges with the bottom eyelid. So I'll show you that now. And what we're going to do is, it's going to be a heavy dark line underneath the pupil area, and then as it travels you get lighter and lighter. So I'm dark here and I'm aiming for C, and as I'm going there I get light and I let off. As I travel for the tear duct, you want to start to make a little bit of a corner, like an S turn here, because you'll notice on your eye it makes a little S turn right there. So if you want at first, you can do it lightly, where you're traveling towards the tear duct and then you start to make a slight S turn. That's what we're looking for. And again, it's dark here at the bottom and it gets lighter as you travel towards the corners. Let's do the same thing on this side. Your eyes should be pretty even and balanced. I'm starting to notice that the eye on this side, which would be her right eye, is starting to look a little bit smaller than this one. So basically what I'll do is I'll just take this bottom eyelid and give it a little more volume so they feel like they're about the same size. It's okay if yours are slightly off because everybody's eyes are not exactly perfect, and that's what will give your drawing some character, is if it's not perfect and mechanical. A long time ago when we plotted B here on the layout, in the center of your eye line, that's the pupil. Now a couple things you're going to want to know about pupils. And go ahead and do this with me. If you do a perfect circle and then shade it dark for her pupil, she's gonna look like she's some kind of a robot or something's not quite right. A lot of times what's going on is the black part of your pupil also has a little glossy highlight on there. So basically, this is the light from the camera or from the lighting in the studio when they were taking this photo. And you're seeing that reflecting back out. And it's somewhere here on the black part of her pupil. So as soon as you make a pupil one solid circle and you don't have any kind of a highlight on there or anything, her eyes will look very dry and she'll look very robotic. So what is better is if you do some kind of a half moon shape, like a 3/4 moon, and then you can just do a quick little dash above it, and this will have a feeling of there's some kind of a light reflecting off of there, and her eye will look wet and more natural and less robotic. The trick is, though, is how your hands are a mirror, your eyes and face are a mirror of each other. The pupil reflection is not a mirror. So if you notice, in her left eye, the reflection is off to the left side, and in her right eye, the reflection is off to the left side again. So see how they are not mirrored? This is very important when you're doing your pupils. So if I had done a pupil like this, where the reflection is here off to her left side, then when I do the other pupil, it's got to be the same 3/4 moon shape and the same dash on the same side, so it's not mirrored. So it's really important to understand that. So coming back up here, look at the pupils in the handout, and this will give you an idea about how big or small to make them. The next thing we want to put in here is her iris. The iris is the color part of your eye. Now, if you'll notice on this model, the iris is touching the bottom eyelid the same as if a sun was setting on the horizon and it was just touching the horizon. But you'll notice here the iris is going underneath the upper eyelid. And this is what gives you a relaxed look to your eyes. So you'll see the same thing over and over, where the iris is touching the bottom eyelid, but it's going underneath the upper eyelid. So do this with me now. If I were to draw a complete iris, it would go perfectly around the pupil. And then the upper eyelid would cut it off. And the lower eyelid, it would be right on there, again, like a sun setting on the horizon. Now, you should be wondering, how big is this iris? Basically, the iris is half of your eye total. So remember, we had already drawn half of an eye total on here. So the iris is going to go, it's going to touch the bottom eyelid, and it's going to go all the way back up to that crease. And as you find these locations, you can start to find a perfect circle that fits within those dimensions. And you'll see on the handout, there's little dots where the iris is going underneath the eyelid. Go ahead and find that now on both sides. So I've been drawing my iris going up all the way to the crease. But remember that the iris is going to be hiding underneath her eyelid. So at this point now, you can go ahead and erase that. So then the iris stops at the upper eyelid. Once you have it where they both look symmetrical, they both look like they're about the same size, and the placement's correct, you can go ahead and darken them in. And for the iris, this dark line would be even all the way around the circle. On my page here, I'm really starting to notice that her right eye is getting a lot bigger than the left eye. And I think basically my lower eyelid is a little bit too low. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and fix mine now. Something to note is, if you want to do a look where your model is looking off to one side, the two irises need to move exactly locked together. So if they're in this position here and you move it to that position there, they will move perfectly locked together. So the same distance that this eye would move to this side, this one would move to that side. And then always remember that the pupil and the reflection on the pupil are not mirrored. The next thing we want to establish on our eyes is getting some eyebrows on here. So the formula for finding the eyebrow is come back to the original C plot mark, which is here on the eye line, and go straight up from that. So go ahead and do that on both of your eyes. And then come back to that original eye height, which is part of the crease. and go straight across from there. And this location where these two lines are crossing, in the handout it's location number 5. This is going to be the beginning of the bottom part of your eyebrow. So it would be here on this girl, or it would be here on this girl. So it's the beginning of the bottom part. Now, the iris, as you remember, goes up and underneath the eyelid. The whole entire eyeball would be all the way from corner to corner. This would be her whole eyeball underneath there. So go ahead and just do that very lightly. So again, it's corner to corner. A circle that fits inside of there. This would be her whole eyeball. So you can imagine somewhere inside of here is her whole entire eyeball. And as you draw the circle, that bottom eyelid is going to follow that circle like a guideline. So again, we're going to start here, and you're going to follow up that circle, and as you pass it, curve back down. But being sure that you have some kind of a corner here. So if it helps, come over on your eye and like a 45-degree, draw a little arrow out. And that reminds you that as you travel and you hit this, you'll want to start to corner back down. So this would be her eyebrow. And then on mine, I'm noticing that this one is higher than that one. So I'll choose which one I like better. You'll notice on everybody it's a little bit different. Her eyebrow's up there super high, and hers is a little bit closer to her face. But the key thing is that they are symmetrical. So whatever the distance is from here to here and here to here, you're going to want it to be the same on both sides. So for me, I accidentally drew one a little bit higher, one a little bit lower. I just need to choose which one I like better. I'll go ahead and stick with the first one that I was drawing. So what I'll do is I'll find the distance from the eye line up to that corner, and I'll come over here and make sure I'm doing the same thing. Something that's really important about eyebrows is if it gets too sharp and edgy and going upwards, she's going to look more angry. So like if you look at cartoon characters, look at a snapshot of when the cartoon character is angry, and you'll see they really project those eyebrows upwards. But if you want your girl to look and feel relaxed, don't get too crazy with making your eyebrows go too high up. Now the second part is doing the upper part of the eyebrow. And so basically what we're doing here is the eyebrow in general is going to be thicker here around where her eye is and thinner as it tapers off. So what I'll do is I'll put a second guideline here somewhere above the iris point, making the eyebrow thicker. So I'll go from the iris and I'll come up here and I'm saying, hey, I want the eyebrow to be about that thick. It's going to travel along and then taper off really quick. And then I'll go ahead and make sure that the other eyebrow is doing the same thing. Now once we start to fill in eyebrows, you just want to have a few little lines and that's about it. Also, do not make these perfect, evenly spaced as if though you're drawing like a picket fence or stairs or something. They should be different lengths, different angles, different sizes, and different darknesses. So when I come in here to start throwing a few hairs on here, I'll make some that are kind of heading the direction of the eyebrow itself, and then a couple that are a little bit off, as if though they got messed up or something, and this will look more natural. So now that I'm going to the mirror side, I want to make sure I'm angling this direction, and then just a couple wonky ones. So it'll look nice and natural and simple. When you start doing actual drawings with your girls, a lot of times you're going to have hair cutting down into here, so you don't really need to spend a lot of time drawing these fancy eyebrows. Also, when we move into eyelashes, you don't need to draw very many eyelashes either. When I do an eyelash, what I like to do is I'll start here at the top of the upper eyelid, and I'll curve down and out. And then I'll skip all the way over to the outside. So this would be C, the outside C, outside corner, and I'll do an eyelash there as well. Once I've established these two eyelashes, then I'll go ahead and just do a few more to fill in between there. And then you'll see something like that. Now, since we've been drawing a lot of stuff on here, I want to go ahead and erase this. Now, before we start drawing eyelashes, something's really important to know. Follow along and do this with me. So you're going to draw a horizon. So this is like the ocean. And then go ahead and put a sun that's setting on the ocean. Now, if you wanted to do something with sun rays coming out of the sun, basically the rays would be going something like this. You'll notice kids will do this all the time. And if you're doing some kind of a coloring, you might even be shading yellows and oranges and reds, and that shading of color would also follow the sun ray directions. So go ahead and do this now, and write on here sun. Now let's do another one. So here's your horizon. Put a little ball on there. And what we're going to do is at the top of this and at the side corner of this, what you want to do is instead of sun rays that immediately move up and out, you want to cut down and out. So it's cutting into the ball and out. And it seems really strange, and it might feel weird. And if you have to, you can even pivot this so if it feels better to curve like that. But the most important thing is you're cutting downwards first. This is going to be an eyelash. So this is the sun just going straight out, straight out, straight out. An eyelash is cutting down into the sun. So when we come over here to do an eyelash, again, I'm going to start at the top of the eyelid, and I'm going to do one eyelash that's cutting down into the iris first, and then it goes up and out. And then I'll skip all the way out to the outside corner, and again, I'm cutting down and out. Now for me, it feels better if I turn it this way, and then I can get a few more just eyelashes in between that. So again, it's cutting into the eye and out. And then go ahead and do the other side as well. So a few things that are important is each eyelash should be a different kind of swoop on it, a different darkness to it, and some can kind of accidentally crisscross each other, just like we were doing here on the eyebrows. So you don't want perfect even space like you're making a picket fence or something. You want these to crisscross each other. You want them to have different lengths, different darknesses. Also, you do not want very many. So ideally, you would just put in like 4 or 5 little eyelashes and you're done. Especially later in time, when you start drawing your croquis and they're only about 1 inch tall, you can only draw like 3 eyelashes. So just get used to just drawing 1 or 2 or 3 eyelashes and you're done with that. So here's an example of a croquis girl, and you can see it's so small you barely have any room to draw just a couple little eyelashes on there, and that's all you need. So just keep it really simple and clean. So now that we have 1 set of eyes complete, I want you to go ahead and do 4 more. So again, take your template, lay a new piece of paper on there, and get your center of the eye line, center of the face, and then your plot marks, and then go back and do the directions starting from the beginning on page 17. So at this point in time now, you should have 2 sets of eyes, and I want you to go ahead and do 2 more.